Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels with me, Martin, Jill, and Sean.
Hello.
Hi.
We've got loads coming up in this episode, including a visit to RHS Harlow Carr up there in North Yorkshire for a chat with the curator Paul Cook and to bid him farewell.
Oh,
Oh,
sad
sad.
news coming up. We need to say thank you to our sponsors who are Plant Grow. They're based in Norfolk and they produce a wide range of compost mulches, plant food, topsoil, all made sustainably from the waste left over from biodigestate.
That's
Is that the
right,
right
green
word? Green
electricity. It
electricity,
is
yeah.
wonderful
Stuff.
stuff too.
Yeah, we like it a lot, don't we? And also coming up later, don't get bitter. There's a cucumber conundrum, a couple of concise
Hey.
cucumber questions coming up. So, but I think first let's go and meet Paul. Well, I'm sitting on a bench with Paul Cook, the curator at RHS Garden Harlow Carr in North Yorkshire. It's a beautiful September day. The autumn colours just starting on one or two of the trees are changing. The herbaceous are vibrant, full of colour. And it's just a lovely place to sit. And the garden is looking brilliant, Paul.
Well, September's a lovely time, isn't it? And it's been a challenging year this year with the drought, but we've got good clay soil here and there's enough plants to... It's the survivors that always look good in the garden.
Yeah, and I think, you've been here for 12 years. You've got to know the garden very well, and you know what grows and what doesn't grow.
Yeah, we've killed a lot of plants in that time as well. I mean, that's the reality of gardens. And so, you do learn over those years, and the team here have learned from the early days. We've been here sort of 70 odd years now. And, you look at Streamside was the backbone, but, there's so much more to the garden now than there used to be.
Okay, so before we talk a little bit more about Harlow Carr and the work that's been happening here over the last decade or so, just tell us a little bit about Paul Cook, how your journey started, how you got into horticulture and how you got to be here at Harlow Carr.
I suppose the big break was I knew I was interested in being outside working, and then I realised it could be a profession. And I went to night school to get some training and met someone there who inspired me to look at plants as a historic thing. Where do they come from? The history of plant collecting, and that started my interest in just learning about plants. And I've never stopped since then, and I'm always learning. But it was that basis that I could be a gardener. I could get paid to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, because we all, when we're young, a lot of us enjoyed it, but the fact you can make a living out of it is a bonus, isn't it? So where did you do your training and your first sort of full-time gardening job? Because you're not from Yorkshire originally, are you?
No, I was born in Wythenshawe, just on the edge of Manchester, and I started there and went to night school at Wythenshawe. But then my first big break was going to actually Arley Hall Gardens near Northwich under a YTS scheme, so the government funded placements, and Arley wanted help. It was a historic garden and lots of different types of horticulture there, and that was really where I saw the breadth of how much you needed to learn.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, a YTS was a youth training scheme, wasn't it?
It was.
They've gone now, and it basically got people into employment in different jobs, didn't it, essentially?
It did. It was an incentive for employers to get someone to help them, and then from there, I realised that you needed a really good sort of academic background as well. So I saw the Q diploma course and applied there a few times. Eventually got in. Took a few goes.
Yeah, and that must have been a fantastic experience. I didn't study at Kew. I studied at a college, Merry's Wood, which is in Surrey, and we used to go to Kew. We probably actually could have crossed paths at some point, because we used to go regularly they used to do quite well-known Monday night lectures, and we used to go on the college minibus there. But having the Q diploma and being there as a full-time student must have been a wonderful experience.
It was, and it was a challenging place. You were given a lot of responsibility in the garden, and you were asked to do a lot outside work as well. So you took what you got out of it, and the people there. I mean, I met some really not just creative, but people who wanted to encourage you to go further, and they did challenge you, but that wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah. So after Kew, was it back to Arley, or did you go to Pastures New?
Well, I taught for a year at Reseed College, Cheshire College of Agriculture, which, having the age I was and the experience, was probably not as good for the students as it was for me. But it got me a job, and then I went back to Arley as head gardener, and I was there for 11 years.
Okay, and then you had a botanic sort of experience then, didn't you?
I did. I mean, the horticulture world is a small world, and I found out that the curator at Nest Botanic Gardens was leaving, and I applied, and luckily I got that job. So it was back into the botanic world. But having said that, these are gardens that are all open to the public, and I really enjoyed the fact that they were open. We had that daily contact with people, and it was a lively atmosphere.
Yeah, and it would be a whole new range of plants, I would imagine. I've never been to Nest Botanic, but I would imagine that, the climate out there, you can grow a lot of things you probably can't grow in North Yorkshire.
It was a joy because, I mean, it's referred to as the Wirral Riviera, and that climate is, you find it in lots of places on the west coast where you get hard winters, but not in the same way, and the moisture levels are different. So all gardens are different, but the opportunities of moving around the country and trying to grow plants in different areas is one of the interests, really, in being in this world.
So then you came from there to Harlow Carr. So what was the draw to come to North Yorkshire? In fact, I don't know whether this is true. I was told you came here on your honeymoon. Is that right?
We did. I've got an interest in alpines, so I went to the Dolomites to look at alpines, and my wife came over to Italy, and then when we came back, we decided to get married. And because of that interest, and because of the history of Reginald Farrar and alpines, for some reason we came to Yorkshire on our honeymoon, went to Ingleborough, and then I have a picture at Harlow Carr over 30 years ago.
Wow. And did you ever think then one day you might be the curator here?
I didn't. I mean, I always thought probably I'd stay on the west, but the opportunity came up, and it's a very different environment. And it was quite a challenging first few years, to be honest. It was very different.
Yeah. Yes, because, I mean, Harlow Carr, as you said, has been open as a garden for over longer probably, hasn't it? But it's celebrated its 70th anniversary a few years ago, didn't it, Harlow Carr? But that wasn't the RHS, that was when it was the Northern Horticultural Society. So it's obviously seen lots and lots of changes, and there's been some very well-known curators like Geoffrey Smith in the past. So was it quite daunting when you got the job to think you've got to carry that responsibility?
Yeah, it was daunting, and also the RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society. I think some people view it as it is a prestigious employer, and in our world it's sort of well respected. But in the end, you're looking after a garden, and you've got support from that. But I did feel a bit daunted in the early days, but I think I've got over that.
Yeah, 12 years later, exactly. So what we're going to do, we'll take a little break, and then we're going to come back and find out some of the things that you've been involved with over the past 12 years and sort of plans for the future.
Coming up later in the show, Martin will have his usually weekly tips and jobs. I don't like calling them jobs. It's just things you need to do in the garden, aren't they?
Yes, if we make it a job, it puts people off, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not a job. It's not a job.
It's not what you say to me.
Pleasure in the garden.
It's a hobby. It's a hobby. One thing I wanted to just ask a question about was Paul mentioned movement between horticultural side and botanical side. And I wondered just what the difference between those two different kind of, is it disciplines, would you say? What's the difference, botanical and horticultural?
Yeah, it is a good question, that. Yes, I mean, because Paul had been at Nest Botanic Gardens on the Wirral, and, we've got Kew, we've got Edinburgh, all these wonderful botanical gardens in the UK and all over the world, of course. Botanical gardens are still a garden, and they do things there, but primarily it's a way of curating plant collections. So most botanical gardens will have lots of individual plant collections grown together, where I suppose at Harlow Carr is more sort of horticultural, although they have got some plant collections. They're not as big, but it's more a landscape, a garden that they've created, a pleasure garden, I suppose, and it's more of the practical skills are done there. So there is a difference, but I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes under that umbrella of horticulture, I suppose.
So botanical's more like kind of a zoo for plants, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah, collections. Yeah,
you just don't need the bars and the cages.
No, and some of them you might do. Yes.
Fabulous. Well, we have got some listeners' questions, haven't we, that have come in?
We have. I just want to point out, first of all, it must be something to do with gardeners, because Paul mentioned that he took his wife. One of the things they did on their honeymoon was to go to Harlow Carr. Reminded me when I was listening to it that one of the things we did on our honeymoon was go to RHS Wisley Garden. So it must be a bit of a thing, mustn't it? It's a busman's holiday.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
busman's
absolutely.
honeymoon.
Yeah. Well, that's when when you make your the thing that you love your job, they say you'll never work a day in your
Exactly.
life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was getting you into
If
gardening.
only I'd known.
Way.
If only I'd known.
You should have run for the hills.
He snuck it in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, look,
We
we've got
always, wherever we go, there's got to be a garden visit. That's
Yeah.
just part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
absolutely fabulous, fabulous. Well, I think everybody does that though, don't they? You know, you go on holiday, well, you see what's in the area and you go and have a
Yes.
nosy
Yeah.
at it, don't you? My
Yeah.
camera's always rolling. I've got some photos from the holiday we went on this summer, massive cacti and all sorts of stuff, which
Yeah.
you know, can't help myself, can't take pictures
Yeah.
of it.
As long as there's tea and cake as well, then I'm happy. So it pleases both of us.
It does,
So, you know,
exactly,
that's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, look, if you've got a question for Martin or anyone on the team, remember, drop us an email. info@potsandtrowels.com is our email address, or you can leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube or anything like that. But also check out our website, potsandtrowels.com. It's got links to all the podcast episodes, each of the videos that we do, and all those ways to get in touch are all there. It's a really easy way to do it when I remember to update it, because I have to do it every week and keep
Exactly. And I had last week, remember we had George and Carol from the Beech Grove Garden, had a lovely email from both of them earlier on this week saying that they listened to it or watched it, actually watched it on YouTube, thought it was fantastic, and thanked us for letting them be a guest on our
that's lovely.
podcast.
That's lovely.
So that was really nice of them.
And if you missed that episode, you can go and listen to it on your usual podcast provider, or you can have a watch of it on YouTube.
Yeah, well, they were both at the time up in Dundee getting ready to record the final episode of this sort of year's Beech Grove Gardens. So they're taking their winter break. But it
Oh,
was
well, if they're having a winter break, then their viewers could tune into Pots and Trowels instead.
yes.
And
All
still
they
get
need to
their
do is
gardening
just
fix.
mention us on the Beech Grove programme.
Yeah, exactly,
Yes.
yes. But hello to any Beech Grove viewers.
Yes,
You've
please.
just joined us.
yes, and we will get George and Carol back, I promise.
Yes.
Yeah, fabulous. Well, should we have these questions then? We've got these listeners' questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with one from Pauline, a long-time listener, viewer. Hello, Pauline, over in New York in the United States. Lovely to see you're back on the podcast. Look forward to it on the Sunday morning. I watched the video of carrots. So this is a video we did on the Pots and Trowels videos about, I think, was it about thinning out and
Maybe,
well,
yes,
some carrots
yeah.
anyway. You suggested leaving them in the garden until use. Mine have started to go to seed. We had a wet spring. And she says, I mean, thinking of building an ark wet, like Noah's Ark, I guess. Now we have had 3 weeks or more of sunny, dry weather. She has a mediocre watering system, but she adds to it. If she leaves them in the ground, what are the effects on bolted carrots? So bolted's when they go to seed, isn't it? If I need to pull them, how do I store them? The fridge. Thank you for your advice. She's looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, well, I'm hoping they didn't all bolt, Pauline, because it's not a good sign when they bolt, because normally a carrot wouldn't bolt until the second season. They're what we call a biennial. So you sow them in the spring and then they grow through the summer, you enjoy them. And then in their natural state, they would die down, the root would stay in the ground. And then in the second year, that would produce a flower and seed and then die. But the seeds drop to the floor. And if they bolt prematurely, and lots of things do, sometimes beetroot will bolt. If you're going chard, occasionally it will. And it's usually because it's had a shock of growth. So it can either be very wet, it can be temperature fluctuation, it can be if you've gone from moist soil to a really, really dry period, something tricks the plant to thinking, we're in our second growing season, so we've got to flower and produce seed. Very often they stop growing at that point because they think they've done their job. So it may be they haven't produced big carrots. It depends when they bolted, I suppose. But they don't normally store as long once that process has happened. So I would get them up as soon as you can. I wouldn't leave them in the winter. I mean, and you can probably get it fairly cold where you are. And I like to get them up usually about October time, but I would lift yours now. Any that had bolted, I would try and eat sooner rather than later because they won't store. The ones that haven't bolted, you can, well, I mean,
I would
not-
freeze them, Pauline, if it
Yeah.
was me. Yeah, so I would blanch them, blanch them in some boiling water. So 2 or 3 minutes, and then plunge them into cold water, dry them off, and then pop them on a baking tray with some greaseproof paper on it. Freeze them sort of in a single-ish layer, in the freezer, and then when they've frozen solid, then just pop them into your freezer bag, and they'll keep really nicely then. But you've got to remember that when you do come to cook them from frozen, but they are partly cooked already, so they won't need quite as much
I
cooking.
mean, you can keep, if you've got somewhere really, really cool, sort of almost like the fridge temperature, then they'll take the tops off and just keep them like that. I mean, that's how they do it commercially in big cold stores, but you do need it to be cool. If it's somewhere warm, they will just shrivel away.
Yeah, better to freeze them.
Yeah, unless you've got tons of them, of
Yeah.
course.
Well, yeah.
I heard there was a follow up from Pauline, wasn't there? That we're going to come to next week, are we?
Yes, well, talking of cooking and in the kitchen, I'm very excited. Pauline has sent me her dad's beetroot, no, not beetroot, because I'm going to make some beetroot chutney this afternoon, so I've got it on my mind. She sent us her dad's green tomato chutney. So if you've got some green tomatoes at the top of your tomato plants, then next week we're going to give you Pauline's dad's green tomato chutney.
Yeah, and I must admit, I'm not normally a fan of green tomato chutney, but I think this looks a different recipe. So I think we will try some, Pauline, and feedback.
Yes.
Because always up for trying something new.
Definitely.
Sounds good. Well, are we ready for our concoction of cucumber questions?
You've been practicing that, haven't you? Our cucumber conundrums are with us. So we've got 2 cucumber questions. So Simon, who's in Nottingham, has been growing cucumbers in the greenhouse, but is finding that they're bitter. Now, he doesn't say if he's already had some that were okay or whether it's the last batch, because it's coming to the end, isn't it? But they're bitter. So why is that, and can he do anything?
Yeah, I mean, it can happen occasionally. I mean, it usually happens on what they call the open pollinated varieties. Lots of the ones we buy are all female, and they only produce the female flower, which then has the cucumber at the back of it. But the old-fashioned types used to have a male and a female flower, and the difference is if you imagine the yellow flower on your cucumber, if immediately behind it there is a tiny, tiny, tiny little cucumber, that will develop into the big cucumber. That's the female. The males just have a very thin single stalk. And if they pollinate, which they need to do to produce seed, but we don't want the seed, if they pollinate, then the cucumber often gets a bitter taste. And it used to happen on some of the old-fashioned varieties, which we don't get as much these days. But occasionally, an all-female variety will, out of the blue, produce a male flower, and if you don't spot it and take it off, it can pollinate the female, and then that cucumber will have a bitter taste. So I suspect that's what's happened. So if you go in them again, just keep your eye on them, and any cucumber flowers with just a very thin stalk instead of a cucumber at the back of it, just pinch those off.
Okay, well, following on from that, Gemma at Gemma Stone has sent a question on YouTube saying, how can I extend the cucumber growing season past September? So she's obviously done well with them, wants to keep them going as long as possible.
Yeah, not easy when we don't know where Gemma lives, do we? They need warmth. Cucumbers need warmth more than sort of any other greenhouse veg. So if you've got tomatoes or peppers, they'll stand it a little bit cooler and go on that little bit longer. But cucumbers need the warmth, and that's why once you get into October, they naturally sort of slow down. So the secret would be to grow them as warm as possible. So close the greenhouse up at night, the vents down, do that mid-afternoon so you're trapping a bit of heat in there. Maybe have a little fan, not a heater, but just a little circulating fan to keep the air moving, because they don't like it to get too damp either. They like humidity, but they don't want cold damp. And the other way you can do it, because the plants naturally, they're an annual, they die at the end of the year, is to stagger your plants. So do some at the normal time and then do a later sowing, or buy a plant later, maybe in June or into July. That one will still have time, and it will still be quite vigorous and cropping through September and into October. So stagger the planting as well. So you can do it, but you're not, unless you've got glass houses that you can keep at, sort of 20 degrees, which is what, I can't do it in Fahrenheit nowadays.
Oh,
They
don't
just
ask me.
double it and add 30.
It's about 70, is it?
70, yeah.
I only say
about-
that because 20 is about room temperature, isn't it? So
Yeah, so
70
you want
about.
20, if you can keep it 20 degrees or 70 Fahrenheit through the winter with lights, then you can keep them growing, which is what they do commercially. But the
much
cost of
worth it,
producing
yeah.
that cucumber would be astronomical.
Yes.
So yes, have a go.
Yes, definitely. Well, look, one last question before we get back to Paul at Harlow Carr. Jane Murdy has emailed us on the info@potsandtrowels.com email address. I love your show. I'd like to know if there's anything you can plant underneath a mature Holm Oak.
Okay.
Regards, Jane.
Right.
I don't know where Jane is in the world, but I don't even know what a Holm Oak is. So over to you.
Well, think of an English oak, our traditional English oak, big tree, quite spreading when it's mature, but the leaves fall off an English oak. The Holm Oak is evergreen. So it's got a lovely dark green, it's quite a leathery leaf. So it's Quercus ilex. It actually looks a little bit like a holly, but it's not as prickly. We've got one in our garden, but we won't allow ours to grow as a mature tree because they get big and they've got a wide canopy. Ours is being grown because you can trim them. They can use them as a hedge. They're really adaptable and versatile. But it's a lovely tree, totally hardy, grows fine. But if it's mature and got a big canopy, the problem with it is, unlike an English oak, which is deciduous, the leaves fall off, so you get light through and rain through in the winter. The Holm Oak, which is evergreen, acts like an umbrella 12 months of the year. So the ground underneath it is not only bone dry, but it is quite dark with the canopy. So you are going to struggle, to be fair. Towards sort of the edge of the canopy, getting out from the trunk, you could probably grow things there. It would be spring bulbs planted now to flower in the spring because then they'll die down. Some ground covers, like there's one called Pachysandra, which is an evergreen, low-growing ground cover. Pachysandra terminalis, Sean might put that in the show notes. Looks quite fresh and grows in quite dry conditions. And some of the vincas, the green vincas, but I think you're going to struggle if you've got that dark canopy underneath that's dried. You're going to really struggle. And whatever you do, try and make sure you keep it really, really well watered until the roots get down.
Super stuff. Okay, well, just a reminder, if you've got an email, drop us. If you've got an email, if you've got a question, drop us an email, info@potsandtrowels.com. But I think we need to go back and find out a bit more from Paul about his plans.
Paul, over the last 12 years, there's been lots of projects you've been involved in. So, just tell us some of the things that you've done here, changes, because gardens are forever changing and evolving. So you've put your stamp on it. So just give us a description of what you like about the changes.
Well, I started September 12 years ago, and as you say, there were plans for the garden. The RHS wanted certain things done here. The woodland area, 30 acres of woodland, needed to be developed. But what struck me about the garden was that there were areas that perhaps were from the 30 years ago that hadn't changed enough, and they're making the garden sort of flow better. So there were odd hedges around, and so I know it's not always good to take away hedges, but things have got to be in the garden for a reason. So coming in fresh, I thought I've got to look at it long term. So I think everything I've done over the 12 years has been trying to open up the garden, make opportunities for the team here to be creative, make their stamp on the garden, and also just keep introducing more plants. It's amazing, even in a garden of 60 acres, there's room for new introductions and new combinations. So, change has always been at Harlow Carr. I hope that continues as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I remember when, I think it was where the veg garden is now, the productive, that's where there were the hedging trials, weren't they? There were all different types of hedges. So you got rid of those, and that is now a wonderful productive area. And one of the things Harlow Carr's always been famous for, because it is the most northerly of all the RHS gardens, is to test plants to see if they'll grow in a northern climate. So that must have been quite good fun to be able to introduce all these new plants.
Yeah, and the trials aspect of what we do as an organisation is fascinating. You can go and see plants grown side by side. You can compare them, and it's a real, it is a real test ground, and that's what I've really enjoyed over the years as well. We've not always done full trials, but demonstrations of certain groups of plants, whether they're vegetables, herbaceous, alpines, and just showcasing what is out there in the horticultural world.
Yeah, one of the iconic parts parts of Harlow Carr is the stream side. It's sort of a long, thin garden, and to one side of the stream that rises up, it's the more decorative ornamental with all the lovely herbaceous borders, the rock gardens, the alpine house. The other side is the woodland area, a bit more informal. But the stream side was made famous, I suppose, by Geoffrey Smith. And for those that don't know, Geoffrey Smith was a gardening icon, gone through the 60s and 70s, radio, television. So you've done a lot of changes, but you've kept that feel about it. So that I think is something that must have been hard to do, but you've really improved it.
I grew up with Geoffrey Smith, so you want to respect what they've done, but it's also the climate's changing, and I think the big thing for me was the Boxing Day floods. I mean, we really then saw how the climate has changed, and particularly for us as a natural watercourse, the highs and lows, you've got to manage that. So I wanted to keep the planting, the Primulas mecanopsis, but what I wanted to do was strengthen the bridges, the stream side itself, so that it would be there for the next generation, because it was being eroded, really.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yes, I mean the amount of water that flows through it, but the planting along there, the mecanopsis and the primulas at certain times of the year is absolutely fantastic. I mean, even now we're sitting here in September, you've got all the lovely hostas and perennials, so it is wonderful. So, any other areas of the garden? I mean, the Alpine House was that here when you came, or was that?
Thankfully, it was here. I mean, the Alpine collection has always been really strong at Harlow Carr, but when the RHS came in, there was a big fundraising appeal. The Alpine Garden Society and various other individuals gave money to build a new Alpine house. It's on the highest part of the garden, nice windy spot, but even there, climate's changed, the planting's changed. We've got cacti succulents in there now, as well as the cushion plants. But yeah, I love alpines, and the nice thing for me is I can talk about these garden areas. Well, I'm physically not doing it. The stream side is managed by an amazing individual and team, same with the Alpine House. So my job has been to encourage and support them in their work.
Yeah, and I suppose it is, as you say, a windy site up there. In fact, it's quite a breezy day today, so if you can hear any sort of rustling in the trees, that is the breeze. It gets quite cold here as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, the winter temperatures and generally the day temperatures, allow us to grow plants and allow the plants to probably, like this year we've seen it. We've had those hot spells, but they're not for prolonged periods. So, the nights are cooler, the mornings are cooler. There is that sort of depth of the clay in the soil to lower the temperatures. So, but there are then really cold spots. And you have to make sure that the plants you put in, particularly in early stages, are given a good start, and you have to protect some things more than you would in other parts of the country.
Yeah. And I suppose to a certain extent that's compounded by the fact that you're on wet, sticky clay in areas as well.
Yeah, I could not believe, even on slopes in this garden, the water still lies there. And, we've tried to plant trees in the autumn, winter, and they'll sit in basically almost like mini swimming pools.
Yeah.
So you find out when the best times to plant are, how you need to improve the soil, and I go back to the fact that we still lose a lot of plants, and that's why you've got to constantly look for new plants.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've been here 12 years as about now, isn't it? If you came in September 12 years ago, and I've known you from not long after you got here, and been very fortunate that you invited me to be one of your garden advisors, one of 3 advisors. So I've seen firsthand the changes that have happened over the 12 years, and it is an amazing garden. I really love Harlow Carr. Whenever you could come every day of every week of the year, and you'd see something different. But sadly, we've got to touch on the fact that you are soon to leave this garden, this prestigious role you've got.
Yeah, this is my last couple of weeks really, and I'm handing it on to Fiona Slight, who's garden manager, who's been here a couple of years, and she'll have hopefully a good 10-year, maybe longer run to make those changes that the garden probably needs.
Yeah, and you decided to do this several months ago. You've been planning this. Was it a hard decision? Because you obviously want to do different things, but was it quite hard? Because it is a wonderful garden. It must be hard. It's a bit of a wrench. So did you ponder an awful long time before you decided it's time to move on?
Yeah, I thought about it for a long time, and obviously talked with the family about it, because I'm leaving to spend more time, doing other things, and also more time with the family. So, and this is a full-time job, and it needs, that headspace and the thought, or to bring it forward in the next 10 years. So I'm passing it on, but sadly, but I think it's the right time.
So that is the reason. It's not to get away from me then. I was getting a bit worried that you'd got fed up with me as your garden advisor.
Well, thankfully, you're only allowed to be a garden advisor for so long, so we'd probably get rid of you anyway.
Yeah, well, I've got one more year, I think. I've been extended by a year. So yeah, I'll be gone as well. So we'll both be gone. But I mean, obviously, I shall keep coming back. So are you, can you give us a little snippet of what you might be doing in the future where we might see Paul cook? Or are you just going to sort of play it by ear and decide what turns up?
To a certain extent, but I think I can see that there are a lot of gardens around the country, and there's a lot of people in the industry who want to find places to work, and I'd like to be part of that conversation about the training of the next generation and how we can all work together to make sure there are decent jobs around the country, around the world. The RHS is an educational charity. We've been very fortunate. We've had students, apprentices here every year, but where do they go to next? And I'd like a bit of time to explore, how I can maybe help with that.
Yeah, and I think that's brilliant, because lots of the colleges don't do the courses that were around when me and you were training. And if we're not careful, a lot of the skills that we use in horticulture and gardening will disappear. So it's important to carry on that training, isn't it? The practical side especially.
The practical side especially. I mean, some of the team here have been here a long time. You forget how good they are at the day-to-day tasks as well as the creative side, and that's the joy of gardening, of horticulture, that mix between the practical and the planning and the creative side. I'm hoping I can still wield a spade occasionally.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you can. Yeah, Paul, it's been great having a chat. It's not very often we get a chance to sit down because you're a very, very busy man, and we wish you all the very best in the next part of your horticultural career, and obviously we'll keep in touch with you.
Hope so. It's been good fun.
It will be sad for Harlow Carr. I mean, a lot of people will miss Paul because he, having been there for so long, it's a sad day. Yeah. But he's obviously got exciting things lined up. Maybe taking a bit of time just to think about what he wants to do next, which is great.
Yeah,
So I hope it all goes well.
And he loves the sort of garden advisory, and he does a lot to encourage young people into horticulture. So I'm sure he'll keep himself very busy. But no, he's lovely to work with as well. I've enjoyed working with Paul there as the advisor.
Yeah.
So
well, he's not moving away.
No, we'll keep in touch.
We know where he is.
Get him on another podcast one day and find out what he's doing.
Yeah. And also, if people want to see some of the things he's been talking about, we've got quite a few videos at Harlow Carr over the years, haven't we? So
yes, we did a lovely one on the stream side showing all the candelabra primulas and the Meconopsis. So that's a really nice one to look at.
It's fabulous through the seasons. One thing I thought was quite interesting is he mentioned how they do lose plants. It's quite encouraging to the likes of mortals that actually, that's part of gardening, isn't it? You're going to lose plants occasionally.
Yeah, it is. And when it was first set up, it was set up as the garden. It wasn't the RHS then. It was owned by the Northern Horticultural Society. It merged 20 odd years ago. And it was essentially a trials garden to see what would grow in the north of England. And they probably lost lots of plants trying then. And even now, the team are quite adventurous with what they plant. They'll try things in the borders. Think, is it borderline? Let's give it a go. And it's a good way of finding out what you can grow in different areas. So that's what it's all about, really.
Well, look, we could talk quite a long time about this because, Harlow Carr's, very familiar to you as a garden advisor. But I think we need to let people know what they need to be doing in their gardens this week because we haven't got a huge amount of time left.
No, we haven't. We haven't got a lot of time. Well, one of them is Pelargonium cuttings. I love my Pelargoniums or geraniums, that type of thing. So if you enjoy growing those and you want to make more plants for next year, I always think, September is a really good month to take cuttings. So just short cuttings, maybe sort of 3 inches, 7.5 centimeters long, below a leaf joint. Take the leaves off. Traditional way of doing them, but you have to take off the little bits on the stem, what we call stipules. little fleshy bits underneath the leaves.
If only we had a video about this.
Well,
that would be a good idea.
That's right. Yes, I think there is one just come out, hasn't there? Yes, as we speak. How
you want to see it in detail?
So and do them, and you could do them various ways. Some people do them in little individual pots in plug trays. I do them in sort of a 3.5-4 inch pot and put several around the edge of it. You've got to keep them somewhere out of the cold, so it could be on a windowsill or greenhouse still at this time of the year. They don't like to be over wet. If you get them too wet, they will rot. So yeah, have a look at the video for that. You get more plants then next year for free. The lawns, since we've had the rain, because we've had that very dry summer, but now we've had some rain, we're looking out at the moment. In fact, the lawnmower's just gone by, cutting the grass. And they are green again, and it's amazing how quickly they've greened up and they're growing. So if that's the case with you, then it's important that we keep mowing them. Don't think, oh, it's the middle of September, let's give it up. We need to keep cutting them. So little and often, because now we're going to build up the grass because it's weakened it in the drought. It's all about building up the strength of the grass. So little and often builds up that top and also encourages a good, strong root system as well. Keeps them good through the winter. And then finally, last week I touched on bulbs, and somebody did send me a message. I talked about when choosing bulbs, go for good size. And they said, but how do you know what's good size and what's not? And that's quite a valid question.
Because they vary, don't they? Yeah.
Well, we've got a rustling paper bag.
So, I mean, this one here, I thought
I'd going to have visual things. If you're listening, we'll try and describe
Oh, there's a lot of soil going everywhere here.
Yeah, I've dropped one there. So I don't know whether you can see these, but that is a daffodil bulb.
Okay, so the people who are only listening, Martin's holding a bulb. It looks like about the size of a small garlic bulb to me.
It does, yes. That one is a daffodil bulb, and that for the variety of this one. This is actually a variety called Joyce Fish, named after my mum, and that is a good size bulb for Joyce Fish. That is a good flowering size. This one I'm holding next to it is also Joyce Fish. Which smaller, is, but it's much, much smaller. So if you were buying them, you would go for the bigger ones rather than the smaller. So if you got the choice to rummage through a box of bulbs in a garden centre or nursery, go for the bigger ones. But you see, the one here is still a daffodil, but it's a completely different variety.
Now Martin's holding up something about the size of a medium-sized onion.
Yeah, well, small child, really, isn't it? So, so go for those really good size bulbs, firm as well. Give them a little squeeze, make sure they're firm. So this little one will flower next year when it's had a full season, and then it will bulk up in size and get to the flowering size. So yeah, get your big bulbs, get them in as soon as you can, and enjoy them next spring.
Superb. Well, look, that is definitely about all we have time for. As we said, we were kind of pushing it a bit this week, but I am now the keeper of time in every one.
You are.
But yeah, apologies if you want them longer. I haven't heard anyone say they want them longer, so we'll stick to half an hour roughly for now. Remember, drop us an email if you want to get in touch. Don't just send us your problems. Tell us what amazing success you've had with your hydrangeas and your camellias and whatever.
Absolutely, yeah.
Next week, we've got some exciting guests on, haven't we?
We're talking pond plants next week. So we've got some tips on how to keep your ponds healthy through the autumn and the winter.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Well, look, that's about it then. We'll see you next time.
See you then. Bye.
Watch the videos on YouTube or Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Twitter or X, and subscribe to the podcast and never miss a thing. For more information, go to potsandtrowels.com.